And
Yep.
one day, Bob Andrews at Canteen called me not long after that, and he said, "Hey, you're young and kind of dumb in a good way. You like debt and leveraging your balance sheet. Why don't you go to Reno where we've got a hole in the franchise map?" We came July 4th, 2018 with 14 truckloads of new
That's it.
new crane machines. Yeah.
Coffee, micro markets, and vending dreams. Break room legends and winning teams. Neil drops gold from behind the scenes. Hey guys, welcome to the Neil from New Zealand show. I've got a wonderful guest today, Jarrad. Jarrad, how you doing? And
Doing
thank
great,
you for
man.
coming in.
Thanks for having me. Much appreciated. Happy Friday.
Yeah, same to you. Hey, so you and I are very much kindred spirits, I feel. We're both serial entrepreneurs. You give up one thing and boom, within minutes, you're on to the next thing. So real quick, tell us a little bit about you and just list out your entrepreneurial journeys and then we'll get into each one of them.
All right. Well, honestly, it started when I was a kid. It's kind of in my DNA. My dad was an entrepreneur. We had a pool table in the house. By the time I was probably 6 years old, I used to watch him with his soldering gun, soldering circuits on electronic boards for this patented irrigation control device that he developed. He was an electronics engineer, and he turned that into a multi-million-dollar company and manufacturing and going up against some of the big guys like Rainbird and Toro, and that was in Southern
Gosh.
California. So really saw a company start from our pool table to 100 plus employees in manufacturing in Southern California, and grew up in
Wow.
giant warehouses, climbing all over. My first job, I think I made 4.25 an hour working for him, sweeping the floor. Um, and,
That's amazing. So, Jared, I've actually known you for a while. I did not know this part of you. And that's the fun thing about this podcast is just
right.
figuring out where things started. So you grew up in a totally entrepreneurial family.
Definitely. Yeah. Mom and dad both ran the company. Dad owned 51% and was the senior engineer, and mom ran the front office. And yeah, knew all the other engineers on the team. Grew up running around the
Yeah.
warehouse where they were manufacturing and soldering circuit boards. And so,
Wow.
yeah. And I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. To be clear, I didn't.
Yeah,
I liked the idea of stability and just the easy every 2 weeks
yeah,
check and the salary and
that's it.
whatever. But
That makes a big difference, right? Is who can stay in the hot oven and not potentially get that check for a while.
yeah, right. I mean, that's one of the biggest lessons I think when you really start out on your own is how much pain you can really take, in the
Yeah,
beginning.
yeah,
Yeah, because every time you start up a company, it's brutal. No matter what your plan is,
yeah,
it's gonna go out the
yeah.
window, and you got to adapt. And
And then you start second guessing yourself, right? When money's flying out the front door and you're like, geez, where's the sales? This isn't going like I wanted.
I think it's a lot like history. There are decades where nothing happens, and then days where decades happen, right? And I
Yeah,
think
love
all of
that.
a sudden
Yeah,
something snaps and
yeah,
everything changes, and it's just, can you hold on long enough for that event to happen, whatever it is, you
yeah.
know.
That's it.
But
If I could go back on my 30 year, well, not 30, I've been in the vending industry for 30 years, but entrepreneurship about 18 to 19. And I can say my secret sauce, my skill is actually two things. I'm oblivious. So if there's no money in the bank, I'm oblivious to it. And
sure.
then secondly is the resilience. I'm kind of like a weed. I get cut down and I just grow back again. And I just keep going. And then if you've got a decent idea, right, over time, it works out.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be optimistic, right? Like, it's got to
Yeah.
be, it's going to work, it's going to work, it's
Yeah.
going to work.
Yep.
You burn the
Yeah.
boats. Or at least I
Yeah.
always did. I never had enough
Yeah.
money to start out with. I never had the ability to pull the plug. It was always
Yep.
full commitment, burn the boats. It's just going to work,
Yep.
and then
Yep.
you make it work because you have no choice.
Yep. Exactly. Now, I know that you've had a couple of successful exits in the vending world, so we're going to talk about that in a minute. But tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now. And it's brand new, right? You're what, less than a year in?
Yeah, at this point, we're slightly over a year, but I started a company called Expressions Kiosks, and we set out to digitize an analog product, right? If you can digitize an analog
Love
product,
that.
you've got some runway. And I've got three kids. My girlfriend's got three kids, so we're this new age Brady bunch, right? Crazy. Like every weekend, there's a birthday party for one of the kids. And so
Yeah,
I was going to Walmart every day looking for the bag, the tissue paper, the greeting card, the gift card, the toy, the
yeah,
whole nine yards every weekend. And you can't help but notice how big the greeting card aisles are in retail,
yeah,
right?
yep,
And you and I have an unattended retail background, right? Vending and
yep,
OCS and micro markets and self
hmm,
checkout kiosks. And one day it just dawned on me there's got to be a way to print greeting cards on demand. And it wasn't really that long after that, I just bumped a couple of Irishmen at NAMA.
hmm,
This was not this last NAMA, but the one before that. And
yeah,
we started talking, and they were from the printing industry over in the UK. And
yeah,
they said, we want to build a kiosk that can print greeting cards on demand. And
hmm,
I was like, that was it. I would not stop asking them questions. I had them call their president back in Dublin. They're like, oh, it's 11 p.m. I'm like, get him on the phone. Get him on the phone. I got to talk to this guy. He picked up, just started peppering him with questions, flew to Dublin a week later. And
yeah,
so Princeware is the company and over there in the
yep,
UK. And we started working with them. And within about 6 months, we developed a kiosk that can print from over 8,000 different greeting card designs on demand. You
wow,
can also print a gift card into the greeting card, so you solve sentiment with a gift.
yep.
So I don't have to
Oh,
go.
love that.
I don't have to go to Walmart on the weekend anymore, right?
Yeah,
And you can write whatever messaging you want. You can upload photos into the designs. And yeah, we partnered up with some pretty heavy hitters. Fujifilm, it was the printing backbone that we built the kiosk around. And
yep,
Walmart had about, I think, over 3,000 photo labs with this printer in it. It's kind of the only printer this size that can do what it does, the quality.
yep, yeah.
And yeah, so it took us about 6 months to design a kiosk from scratch and manufacture it right in time for tariffs. So
Oh
so
my gosh, that is a excellent point. I did not think of that. But hey, I tell you what,
yeah,
two things stand out. One is, once again, NAMA, our industry trade show, is a
yeah,
breeding ground for ideas. You have to come.
yeah,
You have
definitely.
to go and mill around, and who knows, you meet these types of people. And then secondly, OCD. I think that's a trait for entrepreneurs, right? Once you get this idea and you meet the right people, it's non-stop peppering. I do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a part of that resiliency is just that relentless.
Yeah.
I have to pull on this thread until there's nothing left to unravel. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well,
So
congratulations. So, how big's your team? How many people have you got doing this, and what does the runway look like?
I think all in between us and our Irish counterparts and then some engineers, we're probably about 15 people at this point.
It's
So
amazing.
yeah, it's a big lift. It's never been done
Yeah.
before.
Yep.
It's a convergence of technologies, right?
Yeah.
You need
Yeah.
kiosk, you need the point of sale, you need self checkout, you need the intellectual property on the greeting cards. So there's connectivity there. You need connectivity on the gift card component, and so you got to work with Blackhawk, like the biggest in the world, on the back end there. You needed a printer that could duplex and print edge to edge printing. I knew nothing about printing when I started this. I've learned
Yeah.
so much. But you needed a printer like this, and this printer hasn't really existed for that long. And
Yeah.
so at the end of the day, yeah, I think all in we got about 15 people involved in it. So
That's amazing. And now you're coming out of the vending industry that we'll jump back into
sure.
shortly. But how are you getting the kiosks out to market? Are you going through the vending community as well,
Yeah,
or?
yeah, we did leverage our network, right, from the vending industry. So we reached out to a couple of big Canteen franchises. We reached out to
Yep.
Canteen Corporate. We reached out to a USG board elite member. right?
Yep.
And in particular, I'd have to give a shout out to First Class Vending down in Las Vegas and Matt
Yep.
Marsh. Matt really
Yeah.
supported us and let us use his warehouse and had his
Yeah.
sales team come over, take a look, get us into some hospitals, some casinos, the airport. So
Yep.
he definitely gave us a lot of resources that were at his disposal and not ours. And same thing, just actually, I was out with Imperial Vending last week in Tulsa and installed the Tulsa
Okay.
airport. And so, yeah. So, anyways, definitely leveraged the vending network for
I
sure.
love it. And then are you open for other vending companies that might have locations that fit this type of thing?
Yeah,
Give you
I
a
mean,
call?
we're aggressive, right? Any good opportunity
Yeah.
we're going to pursue, and geographically speaking, there we're
Yeah.
starting to get fairly spread out across the country. So we do need partners that have local resources to be able to ship to their warehouse and be able to
Yep.
deploy. We're all the way up into Canada now, and
Oh, good.
up in Toronto, and we're over in New York, and we're down in Georgia and Tennessee, and the Midwest, and all the way over here to Reno, Nevada. So yeah, we're open. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Hey, real quick on the kiosk side of things, how much touch from the vending slash back in the day, right? Those machines were high touch every 2 days you might be filling. How do the kiosks work? How often do you go out there and fill them
Oh
up? And
yeah, we're very happy. We're very happy with the vend visit logistics and dynamic scheduling. So the
yes.
printers hold 450 sheets of cardstock before
Okay.
they have to be refilled. So you can sell 450 greeting cards before
That's a
you've
lot.
got what we believe is a 3-minute vend visit to unlock 2 locks, open the kiosk door,
Okay.
open 3 trays, insert 3 reams of cardstock, close the printer,
Yeah.
close the door, close the locks, you're done. I do it in 3 minutes, and I'm definitely not the tech. I'm more like you.
Yeah.
So
Sales.
yeah, right. Yeah,
What an
so
amazing opportunity, man. This is so, and I bet you guys are having so much fun just getting out and getting after it. And I'm sure there's challenges like any
oh yeah,
entrepreneurial stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The challenges are really understanding the new clientele. We came from
Hmm.
the vending world, and so a rev share, a commission based model to put this in a hospital and a maternity ward, easy,
Yep.
no problem. Sign an
Yep.
agreement, give them X% off the top every month, report by the 10th, no worries.
Yep.
But I was just out at Walmart's headquarters last week, and I've never been there, and I've never met with the biggest brick and mortar in the world,
Big dogs. Yes.
in Bentonville, and 7 senior directors came and from all different departments, and I don't have experience with how they view their stores. I was in unattended
Yeah.
retail, and
Yep.
yeah, so there are some pain points. There's a conversation about, well, is this going to cannibalize our existing greeting card sales, or is there organic lift here and additional revenue?
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
most of the demographics for greeting cards are older, which doesn't really lend itself to using a touchscreen in a kiosk. But can we
Yeah.
stretch the demographic down
Yeah.
to digital natives that are 20 years old, because now
Yeah.
they can customize and upload photos and they can write whatever they want, and that's the
Yeah.
whole online universe that they're used to. So, you
So
know,
you're going to open up potentially a whole new demographic to them then.
that's my pitch anyway. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I'm hoping
Yeah.
for. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
that's
mean, these young kids these days, right? They're walking around. I know just for me, I've got, I think, something like 15,000 images in my phone.
yeah,
And so to be able to print a customized greeting card to pop an image out of their, maybe their brother or sister or friend, it'll upload it and have a personalized card. It totally makes sense.
yeah. I was pitching this the idea to a friend of mine that I just use as kind of he's the no guy, right? Here's why it won't
Yeah.
work. Here's why it won't work.
Yeah, right.
And he
Yeah.
actually brought that up. It's one of the rare times he threw me a bone, and he said,
Damn.
"We've got all these images on our phones, and they're trapped. They're trapped in my phone." He said, I got to get
Yeah.
them out of my phone into the digital picture frame, onto
Mm.
something on the refrigerator door, onto my desk. He's like, they're all trapped right here. And he really liked the idea of, hey, here's a good
Yeah.
mechanism for getting the
Yeah.
photos out of your phone. So,
That's great that the guy that says no all the time gave a positive glimpse here. I
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
I was happy with
Yeah.
that for sure.
Yeah. I had a meeting here in my office it was about 6 months ago. And I said to my staff, I said, this is a meeting and there will be no no's. So if I pitch some ideas, I don't want to hear a no, it's not going to work. It's how can we make it
That's
work?
right. Yeah.
So yeah, I totally understand the no's. Us entrepreneurs don't want to hear no's. Hey, so what a wonderful opportunity. But this opportunity grew from multiple other vending companies that you've had.
Yeah.
Take us back to when you first jumped into this vending
Oh,
unattended retail world.
wow. Yeah. Well, like probably most people in vending, I got dragged in kicking and screaming. I was in construction back in 2008. I lived in
Hmm.
Phoenix. I had a construction company with about 15 employees. And
Oh, really?
yeah, yeah. I was a plumber by trade. I just enjoy construction. And I was on some state government contracts where we had bonds on them because you can't lien
Hmm.
government buildings that you're working on. And
Yeah.
we were a subcontractor, and the number one GC in the state of Arizona filed bankruptcy and bounced 60 days of pay to my company, where we'd
Oh,
only been
no.
on one project for those 60 days.
Yeah.
2 days before, it was 2 days before Christmas Eve, 2008. And
Oh,
so the housing
gosh.
industry blew up, right? I was right in the
Yep.
middle of it. And then I had my first kid on the way, so of course I'm panicking. My
Yeah.
company's dying. I'm
Yeah.
laying people off on right before Christmas Eve. What am I going to
Yep.
do? And one door shuts, another door opens. A friend of mine at the time called me up, said, "Hey, I've got this little vending company down in Yuma, Arizona. I've been working with a company called Ace Vending down in Phoenix at the time, and they were big. Ace Vending was kind of the biggest in Arizona
Big dog.
and the
Yep.
Southwest back then, and construction was just dead. And he said, "Hey, I need you to take over this branch. You're the only person I trust with all the cash because back then there were no credit card readers, right?"
Yeah. Yep.
And I just said, "Yeah, I'll take it, whatever." And I took over this,
Did you
five.
buy it or did he
Well,
give it?
actually, he got into some legal troubles and he was going away for a while. And he said, "Look, if you'll,
Look after this.
yeah, look after my baby while I'm gone." And I pointed out to him, I said, "Look, I mean, I know nothing about unattended retail. I don't know anything about vending machines. I don't know."
Yeah.
So anyway, so I had a crash
How many
course.
machines? And you had, yeah, I was going to say, you had to learn by fire.
Yeah,
Like,
so
let's
it was
go.
it was 550 points of
Wow.
sale, and what I would say is they were fully depreciated and then some. The first vending
Yep.
machine I ever opened up was an AP 111 that was older than me, and when I opened the door, the bill acceptor fell out because it was held up with folded napkins, and
Oh my God.
so that was it. It was game on. It was blood in, blood out. I was in vending, and then really I never stopped all the way until, oh, I think I really sold off anything with vending. The last year was 2022. So, yeah,
22. So from what was it,
2008.
2008
Yeah.
to 2022? Now, I remember reading, before I ever met you, I remember reading stories about you
No.
and how you grew the Yuma branch quite quickly.
Yeah.
Where did you go from there? Did you sell that company and move to Reno, or did
So,
you
yeah.
have the overlap?
Yeah. So I we did grow pretty quickly. So what happened was the assets were fully depreciated. There were no micro markets
Hmm.
at the time. There were no credit card readers. The machines were 30 plus years old and falling apart. And then of course I didn't know what I was doing, which didn't help. But I just
Yeah.
kind of took a look at all the operations one day and I said, I've got to borrow a bunch of money to revamp this company or this is dead in the water.
Yeah.
And so I went to a friend, borrowed at, I think, 5-year amortization at 10% back when interest rates were
Mhm.
floored at zero. Um,
Yeah.
so not exactly the cheapest, easiest money, but it was there and
It was
it
money.
was money. And then basically what happened was I was caught in a debt loop where
Hmm.
I had capital, but then I had to deploy it. But then the return on that capital wasn't really sufficient to support the negative cash flow, right?
Yep.
And so then I had no choice but to grow. Growth cures so many problems.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Definitely.
And Ace Vending, and I got to credit Kevin Van Hazel was the president of Ace Vending at the time, and he said just keep the pedal to the floor, don't stop
Yeah.
growing.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so I was good at sales, and it was kind of an easy market because on one hand, the sales in Yuma, being a border town, per capita aren't that great, but my competition wasn't exactly the most professional either. So when I
Yeah.
walked in and said, I'll give you a new machine, I will give you a machine with a credit card reader, and I was promoting a product and a service that just didn't exist anywhere else in the market, I started getting big accounts and I started gobbling up the market pretty quickly.
Right.
And so, yeah,
And you were doing all the sales yourself at the time?
yeah, I was a driver pushing an Isuzu NPR that the odometer didn't work and there was no reverse gear in the transmission anymore.
Oh
And so I had to get out
gosh.
of the truck and push this 14-foot Isuzu NPR backwards with no reverse gear, enough to cut the wheel hard to then take off out of the parking lot and do sales. And
You are a true vendor entrepreneur, man.
like I said, it was blood in, blood out, man. I had to live,
Yeah.
and I had a baby
Yeah.
coming, and so yeah, it was 20-hour days and all of it. But so we
Yep.
started growing at about, starting at a low base. Our revenue, I think when I took over, was about 550,000, and the next year we were at about 800, and the next year we were at about 1.2, and then Ace Vending
Yeah.
wanted me to go to Tucson so that we could have statewide
Yep.
coverage. They were in Phoenix and they had some decent contracts with some customers that had some pretty good business down in Tucson.
Yeah.
So we went over to Tucson in 2012, started out of a 1,500 square feet. Used to ride my motorcycle right into the back of the storage unit, basically. It was a glorified storage
Yep.
unit. By 2014, between the two branches, we were up to a little bit, I think a little over 3.5 million a year. We had adopted micro
Wow. That's
markets
great
really
growth.
early on, and we were in debt up to our eyeballs,
Yep.
but we were growing fast. So every time
Yeah.
we grew, somebody would lend us money. We could
Yeah.
finance equipment. Interest rates were lower back then, to be fair. Even the hard
Yeah.
money was cheaper back then by probably a
Yep.
solid 5 points, would be my guess.
Yeah.
And then in 2018, we sold off the Tucson branch to Canteen Corporate,
Hmm.
franchised Yuma to kind of break apart from Ace Vending in Phoenix. They wanted to do a private equity deal with Accent Foods.
Okay.
And then we were
So
doing,
is that when you first became a Canteen
yeah,
franchise?
2018.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we were kind of landlocked back to Yuma. So that was tough because we'd kind of dominated. Yuma's so small. We dominated the
Yeah.
market. And
Yep.
one day, Bob Andrews at Canteen called me not long after that, and he said, "Hey, you're young and kind of dumb in a good way. You like debt and leveraging your balance
Yeah.
sheet. Why don't you go to Reno, where we've got a hole in the franchise map, and take a shot at a
Oh,
bigger
that's
market?" And
yeah.
he had shopped it out to everybody. Nobody wanted to relocate.
Okay.
We wanted out of southern Arizona because just it is poor. It's per
Yeah.
capita and incomes are low.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
we'd had a front row seat to the Great Recession and didn't like what we saw down there. And so
Hmm.
we came up to Reno in October of 2013, took a look
Yep.
around, and realized there was only one competitor that was run by private equity, and we thought we stacked up very well against a private equity ran company. And so
Yeah.
we fully committed, and we came July 4th, 2018, with 14 truckloads of new
That's it.
new crane machines. Yeah, and
That was the story
that was, yeah.
that I read, and I'm sure a whole bunch of people read, was like 14 truckloads of brand new equipment. So did you sell the Yuma branch?
No, we kept it. We kept it.
Oh, you
We
kept
had a
it.
good team
Okay.
there, and we felt like it was our anchor. We understood
Yeah.
the
Yeah, I
market. We
like that.
had a monopoly.
Yeah.
And
Okay, good.
and so yeah, we had a choice. We could. It was funny. The private equity firm wasn't very happy that we came into the market, and
Yeah, I can imagine.
they they called me and had some unkind words, and I said, guys, I don't think you realize how stupid me and my partners are. You really don't want to. You don't want to poke us. Like we
Yeah.
will play nice, but
Yeah.
you really don't understand how committed we can be to the wrong decision. And they kind of poked again, and we
Yeah.
said fine. And we had just sold a piece of real estate for almost 3 million, and
Mm.
so we, for the first time in a long time, we had some capital. And
Finally.
yeah, finally.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we burned it all and just did the same thing. We spent our capital and went into debt, and we came into the market with 14. We were the third largest purchaser of Crane vending machines that
I was
year.
going to
We
say,
were only behind Pepsi, Canteen Corporate, and then we were number three.
wow.
Yeah.
That's when you guys really came on the radar for me. I'm like, who is this dude that just bought all this equipment? So you'd actually had success in Yuma with putting out new equipment
Yeah.
and credit card readers. So same philosophy in Reno, right? And then it sounds like you hit right when Reno become popular with all the big tech companies moving out of California right over the border to Reno. So you had a
Yeah, right.
market.
It's hard to beat timing no matter what your plan is, right?
Totally.
And that
Yeah.
was I credit Bob Andrews at Canteen for telling me to come up to Reno because he said it's not the Reno like it used to be. You really need to go up
Yeah.
there,
Sleepy Reno was back in the day, right? But
right?
now it's coming alive. Tesla's up there and all the big tech companies are building there.
Yeah, the first gigafactory ever built was up here. Apple built their largest data center in the world here. You had Walmart, UPS, FedEx, Chewy's, PetSmart, Zulily built some of this corridor of distribution centers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you had IGT for making gaming machines for slots for everywhere from
Yeah.
Macau to Vegas. Yeah, we timed it right, and the private equity group that was up here, their business model, I don't think stacked up very well against our aggression and our ability to come in with new equipment because,
Yeah.
generally private
Yeah.
equity, when they buy up companies, they tend to strip them down or at least let them run as
Yeah.
is, but they're not going to invest new capital.
Right.
And we just doubled down
Yeah.
with millions in fresh capital in new
Yeah.
equipment in a market that didn't have it, with new vending
Yeah.
machines, new micro markets, new OCS equipment, and we just kind of
Yeah.
steamrolled the market.
I call that new energy. It's all about energy, right? And you came experienced, you had capital now, the timing was right. It sounded like they were good blue collar, big distribution
Yeah,
centers that like to spend, they like to buy their Cokes and their Snicker bars and
definitely.
chips. And then you rode the wave. I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah, it was great. Yeah, we
Yeah.
went from we had no revenue July 4th, 2018 to we broke 11 million top line in 4.5 years. So,
Oh my
and
goodness.
and
That is some
vending,
growth. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's
It can take off like that. Yeah.
it's a heavy capital expenditure business, right? Especially like we had no
Yes.
equipment, and so we
Yep.
bought it all, or whether it was cash in the bank or credit and debt.
Yeah.
But we went from zero to we broke 11 million top line with 16% EBITDA in 4.5 years.
That is solid.
It was
I
fun.
love this story. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Did you do all the sales in Reno as well? Were
I
you?
did mostly. I did bring in at the time because of all the growth was starting to experience a culture clash locally.
Yeah.
You would
Yep.
see these bumper stickers when you're driving around that said "Don't California my Nevada" and things like
Yeah.
that. So the locals definitely were starting to identify as locals, and here I was not from here. Now I wasn't from California, so that was a plus. I was from Arizona, but still I wasn't a local.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I did do the sales, but I did hire a local that had been born and raised, grew up here, and he
Yep.
wasn't from sales. He was from operations in the largest local grocery chain that had at one point, I want to say about almost 100 grocery stores, but they were headquartered
Oh,
and started out of
yep.
Reno. And his
Okay.
whole career had been there. And then they
Yeah.
had kind of dwindled. And so he was looking, and I hired him. I trained him on sales. I always
Yep.
accompanied him to the really key big accounts. But after a while, once he really had it, after about I'd say 18 months, I just turned him loose and he did nothing but knock on
Yeah.
doors nonstop.
Oh, that's great. What a great story.
Yeah.
Hey, couple of questions for you. So you obviously came in with some pretty competitive energy.
Yeah.
What do you think it takes for younger people who are coming into this industry? What do you think they need to come in and do good? Because we're in a situation now where a lot of the older companies, legacy companies, are all selling out.
Yeah.
So maybe tell us a little bit about why you think they're selling out, and then what would it take for a new guy person to come in and be successful?
Sure. Well, I think a lot of the bigger, older, more mature companies are selling out just because that's just it. They've been around a long time, and the owners are getting gray, and they want to enjoy. They
Yeah.
finally want to enjoy the fruits of their labor. They want to golf.
Yep.
They've done it, and unless they've got the next generation that they trust and really think can, then they're going to cash out. And
Yeah.
that was one of the things we always saw going to NAMA. I'm 44
Yep.
now, right? So when I
Hmm.
came into the industry, I was a lot younger, and I started going to NAMA, I think around 2010, 2011, and it was just obvious. I was the youngest owner walking the floor.
Yeah.
Um, right? I just was. Everybody that I was
Yeah.
dealing with had 20 years on me at least.
Yeah.
And because it's an old business. I mean, Canteen created this
It
thing out of
is.
Chicago back, I think, over 90 years ago at this point. And
Yeah.
so you had these legacy companies with owners that were already even second generation that had been doing it for 20,
Yep.
30 years. They wanted their exits, and good for them, right? I mean, that's the
Yep.
whole
Yep.
that's the American dream. So I think that was why. And now I think it is a good industry for young people to get into if they're willing to work hard, right? My
Yeah.
kids are pretty young. My son is 7, and he told me he wants to be a YouTuber. He's not he's just like the
Yeah.
youngest generation, of course, is just so digital. But in a
Yeah.
digital world, if you're willing to do analog hard work,
Yep.
I think there's a lot of opportunity. And the fact is, and I got to credit Compass. My time at Compass, they really taught me a lot from,
Yeah.
they're one of the
Definitely.
top 10 largest employers in the world. At one point before COVID, they had over 700,000 employees. And
Yeah.
one of the things when I went to this big Compass get together, they pointed out the fragmentation and the size of the food and beverage retail market. And
Hmm.
I don't remember the exact stats, but Compass was doing something like 30 billion. You had Sodexo and Aramark each probably combined doing 35 billion. And all three of them only equaled something like a fifth of the market or something like that when it came not to
Goodness.
vending, but food and beverage
Yeah.
retail as a
Food and
whole.
beverage. Yep.
And so what
Yep.
they were really trying to communicate is there is so much runway, even for a company their size, that they
Yeah.
see no horizon. And if a $30 billion top 10 employer in the world that you're competing against doesn't
Yeah.
see the horizon, well, then there is no horizon for a mom and pop or a 25-year-old
Yeah.
kid that just wants to start putting out some machines and seeing how it goes.
Yeah.
And so I do think, and if you go on YouTube or you do any research on small businesses that you can start up that have the most success, vending machine companies are almost at the top of the list. It's like laundromats, vending machine companies,
Yeah.
and so anyway, you got the float from the daily float can keep you
Yep.
alive even when you're a fool like I am, and you got negative cash flow and
Yeah.
you're up to your eyeballs in debt. That's a big one that helps. And
Yeah.
so I think the tools there are, if you can bring something that the status quo of your competitors just isn't delivering, because
Yep.
nobody has any loyalty from the customer side at the end of the day. They might like
Yeah.
you, yeah, you can talk relationships, but we're all selling cans of Coke. Can you
Yep.
entertaining? And if you can do that, you're in
Yeah.
and you're going.
Yep.
So
That's it.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's some really good advice for the younger people because I do talk to a lot of people coming in, and the one thing that I want them to know from me, get ready to work hard.
Yeah.
None of these TikTok videos about passive income, sit on the couch, let the machines do the work. It's going to be the hardest dollar you've ever earned.
Yeah,
Would you agree?
I remember sleeping on the cement floor of my warehouse in Tucson on top of my freezer bags because we had micro markets and we had frozen food. And so to insulate me from the cement floor, I'd sleep on those, and I'd get 2 hours of sleep in the middle of whatever insane project I was working on because it wasn't worth
Yeah.
going home. And
Yeah.
yeah, the idea that the machine is unattended and just makes passive income while you sleep, it's like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
but there's a lot of asterisks behind that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. You got to get in and you got to get after it. Hey, I spoke to another entrepreneur, owner of a vending company, 47 years. He said, Neil, I've never felt like I've had a job. I love getting in here and grinding. Is that the same for you? Have you loved it all the way?
I mean, I don't know that I'd put it quite that way. It did not feel like a job. I'll agree with that. It never felt like a
Yep.
job. When you work for yourself,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like a job. The highs are the highest highs, and the lows are the lowest lows.
Yes.
They're brutal.
Yeah.
I worked with my wife at the time, the mother of my kids, and we got divorced. And I would argue
Mm.
the amount of my life that I had to sacrifice to the company affected
Yeah.
our relationship and our
Yeah.
family. And
Yeah.
ultimately, I'm not saying that was the only reason, it wasn't, but it had a lot of impact on my family life.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
just to kind of highlight, there's some very, you just own it all, the good, the bad, the ugly, because
Yep.
it's yours.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know. I guess that's where I'd leave it. But I don't regret it. It
Yeah.
was an amazing journey, and I would say probably the best experience for me, because it is so blue collar, right?
Yep.
You don't have doctors and scientists and surgeons running a vending machine company, right? We all
Yep.
roll up our
Yeah.
sleeves and we get involved. And half the time you got office staff and they jump in to help out when your VMS
Yeah.
blows up and you got to redo your, you know what I mean? And
Yeah. Yeah.
but my favorite part is that I hired so many people that were very low income or lower middle class that
Yeah.
had never had an opportunity to really level up. And because we were growing
Mm.
so fast, right? We always had hyperbolic
Yeah.
growth. There was always the next job opening in our company. And I would go back to
Yeah.
whoever was the hardest working person, man or woman, that had the skills that kind of related. And I'd go, hey,
Yeah.
I can bump you up 20%, but I need you to handle
Yeah.
this. And you're
Yeah.
seeing those employees buy their first homes, right?
Yeah. That's special.
It really is. I saw so many people buy their first home while we employed them.
Mm.
Even husbands and
Yeah.
wives. We had three husband and wife teams, and we
Yeah.
saw them get their first homes, even their first nice car, or
Yeah.
become managers when they had started in the warehouse, then become a tech or a
Hmm.
driver, and then eventually we hired a guy who had probably 25 years experience. And I'm from Arizona, from the border, speak Spanish, and he was a Mexican national, lived here with his green card, absolutely qualified to manage an operation, maybe just vending or just micro markets. And he had tried with this other company, and they said my English wasn't good enough. His English was fine, he just had an accent. And I was
Yeah.
like, I will hire you right now to manage this. I handed him, it was back in 2019. I paid him 80,000 a year plus benefits. And
Yeah. Oh,
he
great.
killed himself. That was the best investment I ever made as the owner of the
Yeah.
company handling HR. And
Yeah.
those moments are very touching. That's where you appreciate the
Yeah.
humanity of the
Yeah.
hard work and the team spirit.
Yeah.
And
It's kind of another form of payment, right? We can get paid
yeah,
financially, but then to be a contributor to other people making it like
yeah,
that get paid from that as well.
yeah. I always hear the corporate discourse in America. Well, we employ everyone, don't tax us, but
Yeah.
and like I get all that, but when you're down at that level and you've got 10 employees, 50 employees, 100 employees, you tend to really know them. You meet their kids, like
Yes. Yeah.
you see their children grow up, and it is very rewarding. It really does
Yeah.
resonate, and you're like,
Yeah.
wow, I built this
Yep.
company from scratch, and this guy just his whole life
Yeah.
just leveled up because of
I
our
love
effort.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. This is a theme as I do these interviews, and I did one. I remember my first one I did like literally 7 years ago with O'Sullivan Vending in San Jose, and I remember the same theme coming out as Jake and his team. They would take on people that it was their first shot at a real
yeah,
job, and they just needed an opportunity to prove themselves, and they did. And the same thing like you is they, migrated up through the ranks and ended up being managers buying
Yeah.
homes. So that's a great story.
Yeah.
Hey, couple of things. Did you have a partner along the way, or has it always been you?
No, we definitely partnered along the way. So it started with back in Yuma, and I was the partner that was brought in. And then
Yep,
eventually I bought out that partner. And then
yep,
my now ex-wife, but wife at the time, Diana Cother, she came in and we officially, legally brought her into the company because there was no
hmm
way I could handle the accounting while I was handling everything else and pushing
yeah,
a truck without a reverse gear. And then we needed more capital and we needed somebody that was more tech savvy than us. So we brought in a friend of mine, George Caruso. I'd known him since I
yep.
was 16. He built probably 1,000 computers and servers, and he was
Oh,
not
good,
corporate,
good.
but he was tech. And I was like, boy,
Yeah,
do I got the job for you. And so he
yes,
came in with some family money and jumped in. And then our first employee in Yuma, who had worked there prior to me, when we went to Reno, I needed to know he had some skin in the game. And so
yeah,
we made him a deal. We said, hey, we'll sign you in on equity for a minority share. And he was from Mexico, had never had an opportunity like that. Signed the dotted
yeah,
line, and he ran Arizona for us and held the whole thing down. Um, and ended up
yeah.
doing very well when we sold. He did. He was very happy. Like in the end,
Oh,
he
that's
was with us.
awesome. Man,
Yeah.
to take a lot of people with you in terms of jobs and then ownership as well.
Well,
Wow,
I,
that's amazing.
you know, if maybe if I'd had an incredible amount of capital that was mine, I might have tried
Yeah,
to own the whole thing. But like, what's that old Chinese saying? If you want to go fast, go by yourself. But if you want to go far, go with the team. And
go with a team. I
we
love that.
just
Yeah,
constantly added to the team. And even when we came up to Reno, we
yeah,
ended up bringing in a couple more
yeah.
people. And yeah,
Hey, it sounds like what a great combo with George coming in and
yeah,
tech, because technology, I believe, I tell everyone, if you want to come into this industry, come in with
yeah.
technology. Try to get all your machines online, obviously credit card readers, but whatever tech you can lay in here so you're not trapped on the freeway all day long driving big trucks around. Same for you, right? You guys were deep into technology.
Yeah, we were. They when I credit Ace Vending and Kevin again when I met with him back in I don't know '08, '09, whatever it was, and I said I have no idea what I'm doing. He said it's okay, you don't have to, just copy us. He's like we already built the rocket ship,
Good idea.
we're the big guys, we know what
Yeah.
we're doing, copy us. And so we were always bleeding edge of tech when it came to vending. We
Yeah.
started operating. We had credit card readers out, and we were almost fully deployed. I think by 2010. By 2011, we were operating multiple Avanti micro markets as Avanti
hmm
was coming out of the Pacific Northwest. We jumped right into micro markets, coffee, pantry service. We were 100% VMS from day one. I do not know what it's like to not pre-kit, even though I started all the way back in '08, '09. We pre-kitted drinks even back then.
That's
Um, all the
wow, that's
way,
unique.
yeah, right. We ran to everything. We were always looking at what's the next piece of technology. We ran GPS and Samsara, and we
Mm.
dynamic scheduling. We started doing dynamic scheduling really early on, probably 2015. We were running dynamic scheduling and playing with the triggers. And we don't want to touch a
Yeah.
machine unless it had X amount of sales or unless it ran out of a key
Yeah.
product or was about to. And yeah, we were pretty relentless, pre-kitting into color-coded crates so that there were green route, blue route,
Oh,
pink route, yellow route,
yeah.
so you could see in the warehouse who was who, and nobody could mix one up, even though the Lightspeed tickets wouldn't stick to the
Yeah.
crates. And Lightspeed, right? All of it. We were
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
relentless on, because I like
Yeah.
macroeconomics, and
Mm.
I very much believe in productivity. You have to get more and more productive and get more bang for the buck
Yeah.
to keep ahead.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep. Yep. Hey, and you jumped on Zippy early, and we in multiple ways. So we really appreciate that. How's Zippy going across your
Yeah,
expressions
no, Zippy's been
kiosks?
great. In fact, I showed it to Walmart last week and they loved it.
Oh,
Yeah, they
really?
loved it. I had 45 minutes to present the kiosk to these
Yeah.
directors and all these different merchants. And we get through all the features, and I got to the very final minute, and we're kind of wrapping up. I said, "Hey, I just want to show you guys, 'cause 45 minutes is not much time for a sales pitch with
Yeah.
Walmart,
That's
right?"
quick. That's
And
quick.
so
Yeah.
I said,
Yeah.
"Hey, but I really want you to see this." And I showed them. I said, "We've got customer support in an unattended application, and you're not just going to sit there on hold." And I showed them. So I scanned the QR code and I walked them through it,
Yep.
and they loved it. And yesterday, they sent me an email confirming they built a checklist of all of the features of our kiosk, and they had checked
Yeah.
off customer support, and it was all that
Dang.
checked off customer
That's
support. So there you
huge.
go. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. To get the thumbs up from one of the biggest companies in the
So
world. Oh my
there you
gosh.
go. But no, it's going
Wow.
great. Yeah, yeah. And I
Yeah.
remember
Awesome.
we were one of your first. And I remember you called me and said,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm trying
Yeah.
to just get people to try this out." And I
Yeah.
put George in touch with you guys, right? Because he's our
Yeah. Yep.
CTO. And
Use your
yeah,
techie. Yep.
and we were on it
Yeah.
fast. And then
Yeah. You're in a as you look at the technology model, right? You guys are classified as early adopters. You're actually on the lookout for cutting edge tech.
yeah,
Whereas other people they come on much later. They're too busy in their operation. So that's what we're struggling with.
it just dawned on me. Full disclosure, I invested in Zippy Assist early on. We're investors. I forgot
Yes.
about that. Full disclosure.
Yeah, well, that's why I said you jumped on
Yeah,
Zippy in multiple
yeah,
ways.
yeah,
One
yeah,
was an
yeah,
investor, thank
yeah,
you, and then you also ran out there and pushed it out there for us as well. So we really appreciate
yeah,
that. Hey,
absolutely.
so Jarrad, you're 44 years old, man. You've already had super success. What is next? Obviously, you're going to go hard on
Yeah.
expressions, but what do you see 5 to 10 years from now?
Yeah, that's tough, right? Because people have asked me, especially as we're talking to big capital, and they want to know it's not necessarily about the kiosk and the product, it's the person. Like, who are we investing
Yes,
in?
that's
And
right.
who's the team?
Yep.
And what's your vision? And they want to make sure we align. And so I've been asked a lot, what do you see in 5 years? Do you want to grow this and go public? Do you want to sell out to private equity? Do you have an exit window and all that? And it's a tough now with what I'm doing, it's a tough question to answer because this is such a new product. You talked about us being early onboarders. We even took it a step further, and now we're the developer, the manufacturer, the creator of a new tech. And we're taking
Yeah.
shots at two multi-billion-dollar industries, right? Greeting cards in the United States alone is about a $6 billion a year gross industry, and
Hmm.
gift cards is 260 billion. And here we are
My
trying to
goodness.
digitize both. So there's this huge target that we're aiming at. And so
Yeah.
it's really hard to understand, no matter how much I do research and talk with people, where this is going to go, because we're only a year
Yeah.
in. But what I've told potential investors and potential partners is, if I think I see a horizon and I don't know how to push that horizon out, if I can't develop something new and creative enough that I still don't see it anymore and I can keep moving, then at some
Hmm.
point there, it's probably time for me to start thinking about the exit. And right, so long
Yeah.
as don't see the horizon, if I see the horizon and I can't innovate around it, and it's just coming,
Yeah.
and I can't come up with
Yeah.
anything new, then it's
Yep.
probably time for me to sell it off to the next company that can get the next 10 years out of it with their business model successfully,
Yeah.
right? Where they can still
Yep.
4, 5, 10 exit. But I know I'm not that
Yeah.
guy. I'm the 0 to 1 guy.
Yep.
I'm not the 1 to 50
Yeah.
guy. And
Yeah. I feel the same way. I kind of know exactly what you're saying. There's layers, right? Sometimes you're built for these layers, but maybe not the
yeah, I think
next.
it's important to understand that about yourself. Are you and your team, are you the 1 to 50 team that can take something that's been developed and really mature it and grow a
Yeah.
company that anyone would invest in on a publicly traded company? And or are you the crazy entrepreneur that just defied all odds and burned every boat and told everybody, I know what I'm doing, even though you didn't,
Yeah.
and by skill and luck you pull it off, and you're the 0 to 1 guy? And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I think we're more the 0 to 1 team than the 1 to 50. So I
Yep.
lean that direction if that
Yeah.
helps answer it.
Yeah. I love it. I had a business therapist coach tell me one day, he said he was interviewing me and figuring out what my skill set is. And he said, Neil, maybe you're the guy that just starts businesses. You get about 3 to 5 years in and then just sell it. And then you seem to pull a lot of energy from being creative and starting. And I always remember that. And I think that is
I
my
know what I
skill set.
think
I
you.
just see
There we go.
gaps and yeah. So anyway, well, Jarrad, listen, what a wonderful conversation. The Neil from New Zealand podcast is all about chatting to just entrepreneurs exactly like you who jumped in, coming in from a construction bad situation. You got in there and grinded it out, and now you've popped up into the big time, man. You're banging on some blue ocean new space with the printing card tech.
Yeah, well, I'll take luck over skill every time, but thank you. It's a real
Yeah,
pleasure, Neil. And
yeah,
yeah, I've appreciated you in the industry and what you've done and seeing startup companies as well. And,
yeah,
like Zippy in particular. And yeah, no, I
yeah.
appreciate the opportunity.
Appreciate it, Jarrad. Thank you so
All right.
much.
Thank you.